the soft darkness of ancient memory, where the winds of time whisper through forgotten ruins and marble dust, the story of Rome begins like a spark in the wilderness, quiet, unseen, almost impossible to imagine in its eventual greatness. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift into the deep cradle of history, we embark on a slow, gentle journey into the vast epic of the Roman Empire, not as a loud battlefield of clashing swords and rising empires, but as a calm reflection on how a small settlement by a river changed the fate of the world forever. Rome is not only a city, nor a period in time, it is an idea of power, ambition, transformation, and the endless cycle that all civilizations must walk. The hills around the river Tiber, quiet beneath a blanket of dawn mist, once carried the heartbeat of a people who did not yet know that their footsteps would echo into eternity. Rome's birth is wrapped in legend, Romulus and Remus, divine ancestry, the she-wolf nurturing destiny itself. Whether these stories come from myth or memory is less important than what they represent, that civilizations often begin with belief long before they rise on stone foundations. By candlelight in crumbling villas, historians wrote that Rome was guided by fate, but perhaps it was guided by something far more human, the desire to survive, to grow, to carve meaning into the soil of a difficult world. Imagine that early Rome, huts of wood, men who tilled fields and traded with neighboring tribes, women who tended fires and raised children beneath the open sky, and elders who shared stories of gods who shaped the stars above them. Everything was small, simple, and fragile. Yet, within that fragility, Rome found purpose. What we will follow tonight is the long breath of an empire, born humble, rising into power, and eventually returning to dust. You will hear of republic and senate, of generals whose names survive written in marble, of ideas that shaped kingdoms long after Rome fell, and of the quiet lessons that still live in the modern world. The Roman Empire did not appear overnight. It grew like a river, fed by streams of ambition, conflict, innovation, and fortune. Its history moves through time like flowing water, sometimes peaceful, sometimes violent, always moving forward. In the rhythm of that ancient tide, there is a story deeper than armies marching across continents. It is the story of how people learned to live together under laws instead of tribes, how roads connected distant lands, how languages spread, and how ideas traveled farther than swords ever could. Tonight, let the rise of Rome unfold slowly in your mind, allow its triumphs and tragedies to blend with your imagination, as if you, yourself, stand in the Forum at dawn, listening to the echoes of centuries around you. Rome will rise, Rome will expand, Rome will fall, and yet Rome will never truly be gone. Its legacy exists in the shape of modern cities, in the laws that govern nations, in the languages that carry human thought, and in the silent knowledge that power, like the tides, always returns to the sea. And so, let the journey begin. Close your eyes and picture the first stone laid in the foundation of a republic that would transform the world. Rome's rise began not with empire, but with survival. The early Roman kingdom grew from scattered tribes, Latins, Sabines, Etruscans, living in tension, exchanging culture through war and peace. In its earliest days, power rested with kings who claimed sacred authority, blending religion and leadership to hold the city together. But the people of Rome were restless, unwilling to accept rule without representation. When the last king, Tarquin the Proud, was overthrown in 509 BCE, Rome declared itself a republic. It was a revolutionary moment, not defined by rebellion in the streets, but by the quiet creation of something new, a government built on shared power, public debate, and written law. In a world ruled by monarchs, Rome dared to imagine a different system, one in which senators spoke for the people, magistrates enforced justice, and citizens bore responsibility for the future of the state. The republic was imperfect, its rights favored aristocrats, its politics were bitter and divided, but it laid a foundation no civilization had attempted on such a scale. The heart of the movement was not military conquest, it was the belief that power could be structured, balanced, restrained, not by the whims of a single ruler but by the collective weight of institutions. In the early centuries, Rome expanded cautiously, defending its territory from neighboring tribes, forming alliances, and slowly building a reputation as a force too determined to break and too strategic to ignore. The Roman legions, disciplined, organized, relentless, were not yet tools of imperial domination but instruments of protection. Yet with every victory, Rome learned something dangerous. Expansion created both wealth and hunger, the hunger for more. Wars with the Etruscans, conflicts with the Samnites, defensive battles against invading Gauls, all shaped Rome into a military society, where discipline was a virtue and sacrifice for the state was the highest honor. The Roman spirit hardened in this fire. Generations raised with the idea that duty outweighed personal comfort, that citizenship meant service, and that Rome itself was greater than any individual life. By the time Rome stood against Carthage in the Punic Wars, it was no longer merely a regional power, it was a civilization with momentum. The struggle with Carthage, long, brutal, costly, tested everything Rome believed about itself. Hannibal's march through the Alps terrified the Republic. Defeat haunted Roman memory for decades. Yet Rome did not collapse. It adapted, reorganized, and countered with relentless determination, producing commanders like Scipio Africanus who met Hannibal on the plains of Zama and secured Rome's dominance over the Mediterranean. Through the Punic Wars, Rome learned that destiny was not inherited, it was forged. And so, expansion became not only a necessity, but a mission. Provinces emerged where once only enemy territory existed. Trade routes stretched across seas. Roads connected colonies and cities. Wealth flowed into Rome like a river pouring into the sea. But with wealth came inequality, with expansion came political strain, with ambition came rivalry. The seeds of future conflict were already planted in the soil of victory. Rome had risen through unity against external threats, but now it faced a different enemy, discord from within. The transformation of Rome from republic to empire rests upon the shoulders of figures whose names echo across time: Julius Caesar, Pompey the Great, Marcus Crassus, Cicero, and later Augustus. These were not simple heroes, they were complex individuals caught between personal ambition and national destiny. Rome's political system, designed for a small city-state, began to crack under the weight of continental power. The Senate feared strong leaders, generals feared each other, the people demanded reform. Tension grew like a storm waiting to break. Julius Caesar emerged as a man of extraordinary charisma and strategic brilliance. His campaign in Gaul displayed military genius, expanding Roman borders and filling the city with admiration and fear. Caesar's popularity among the masses challenged senatorial authority. To his supporters, he represented progress, land reforms, debt relief, the promise of a more inclusive Rome. To his enemies, he threatened the Republic itself. The first triumvirate, an alliance between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, was born from necessity, a delicate balance of power. But alliances in Rome rarely lasted. After Crassus' death in Parthia, the partnership collapsed into rivalry. Civil war ignited when Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE. A symbolic step that declared war on tradition. The struggle was swift and decisive. Pompey fled to Greece, then to Egypt, where he was betrayed and murdered. Caesar returned victorious, but victory demanded sacrifice. The Republic as Rome had known it could not survive. Caesar's rise brought hope of reform but fear of monarchy. His assassination on the Ides of March was not the act of villains, but of senators desperate to preserve their vision of Rome. Yet, instead of saving the Republic, the act unleashed a new wave of conflict. Into this chaos stepped Caesar's heir, Octavian, soon to become Augustus. Young, calculating, and politically gifted, Augustus understood what Caesar did not: power needed legitimacy, not only victory. Through alliances, propaganda, and strategic warfare, he dismantled his rivals, defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and presented himself not as a king, but as the first citizen, the Principate. Under Augustus, Rome stabilized. Institutions remained, but authority flowed through a single hand. It was the beginning of empire, subtle enough to preserve tradition, powerful enough to rule continents. The turning point of Rome was not a single battle, but the moment the Republic surrendered its identity for imperial unity. Augustus' rule ushered in the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative peace, prosperity, and cultural flowering. Roads expanded across Europe, Africa, in the Middle East. Cities rose with temples, amphitheaters, aqueducts, and forums. Trade flourished. Art celebrated myth and power. Law became structured and sophisticated. And yet, beneath the marble surface, contradictions remained. Emperors varied wildly, some wise and philosophical like Marcus Aurelius, others cruel and erratic like Caligula or Nero. The empire's size became both its strength and its weakness. Defending distant borders required armies constantly marching across vast landscapes: Germanic forests, desert sands, snowy mountains. The Danube, the Rhine, the Euphrates, each frontier told its own story of resistance. During Trajan's reign, Rome reached its greatest territorial extent, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Persian Gulf, from the African deserts to Scottish hills. But the larger Rome grew, the more fragile its center became. Wealth disparities widened. Slavery fueled the economy. Corruption undermined institutions. Plagues and demographic decline strained resources. When invasions came, from Goths, Vandals, Huns, they did not strike a strong republic, but a weary empire divided between East and West. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell, but the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, continued for nearly 1,000 years, preserving Roman law, culture, and legacy. Rome did not end, it transformed. After the fall of the Western Empire, its influence lived on in countless ways. The Latin language evolved into Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, the Romance languages that shape the speech of millions today. Roman law became the foundation of Western legal systems. Christianity, once persecuted, emerged as a global religion from the very heart of the empire. Roman engineering, roads, bridges, aqueducts, inspired centuries of architecture. Ideas of citizenship, civic duty, elections, senates, checks on power, all trace their origin to the Roman imagination. Even the dream of empire itself, large, stable, organized societies, was modeled on Rome. Medieval kings crowned themselves as heirs to Roman glory. Renaissance artists revived Roman aesthetics. Enlightenment thinkers studied Roman governance. Modern republics echo ancient debates about liberty, equality, and authority. And today, as you drift deeper into sleep, surrounded by the quiet hum of the night, the story of Rome becomes a gentle reminder that all power is temporary. Civilizations rise from ambition, fall from division, and leave behind ideas, intangible treasures that shape future generations. The Roman Empire was not perfect, it was full of contradictions, injustices, and conflict. But its legacy is vast. It showed humanity that societies could be built not only on might, but on law, administration, philosophy, engineering, and culture. As the last torch of Roman history flickered, its light passed into the hands of those who came after: Europe, the Middle East, and eventually the entire world. You may rest now, knowing that even in collapse, Rome's story is one of endurance. For history is not the memory of ruins, but the continuation of ideas.